Anticipation with a knife. Okay, 5:15. So it is officially 5:15, which is scheduled for our first of two workshops for this evening. So this is in regards to proposed ordinance, text amendments to the city code, chapter 3, pertaining to terms of office for appointed officials. So with that, Michelle, turn it over to you.
We are coming to you today, well, we as in Oscar and myself, to redefine the term outlined in the ordinance, just to match practices of other cities throughout the state. When looking into that, we're the only city still using a term defined by number of years. And we felt like it would help insulate from any politics while providing consistency and retention amongst our appointed officials. So throughout the ordinance, what we are requesting be changed is the specified terms instead of years to be appointed officers shall hold their position until their resignation or removal. Removal of an appointed officer may be initiated by the mayor and confirmed by majority vote of the full city council or by unanimous vote of the full city council as provided in Idaho Code 50-206. With that, I stand for questions.
Very good. Okay, nice and simple questions. And I don't, so there's maybe one. Yes, Councilor Allgood.
Yeah, Michelle, I'm kind of against this,
Okay.
but I wanted to hear more about, we're the only city left in the state doing it?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, because reading it, my first take was, well, all you got to do is be friends with the mayor and one council member and you're never going to be fired. And that concerned me, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, here and there we've had someone that didn't fit. So it would basically require a unanimous council decision or the mayor and a majority. Am I understanding that right?
Correct. I mean, I feel with the new administration in our place, Oscar and I are working well together that if an appointed official is not doing their job, that's when we would be coming forward to the mayor and council in an executive session to discuss our concerns and where we would move forward. However, it could be, I mean, based on what our terms would be, find the other one. We would also add removal of an appointed official maybe for any reason. And then that way it kind of leaves it open, since we are an at-will. There are, you know, other reasons that we could want to remove somebody.
And I'm pretty sure I know the answer to this, but even appointed officials are at-will employees,
That's correct, yes.
so I still have echoes of previous.
And that's where we're, you know, right now having a term, if an appointed official is not doing their job, why would we keep them through their term anyway? We would be coming forward to remove them sooner. We're not going to wait till the end of their term if they're not doing their
Right,
job.
right. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Register.
Hello. I just have a couple of questions. Now, the only way to remove an appointed official now is the same as what you just said, right? The mayor and majority or unanimous vote from council or not reappointing, right? So we have a third choice in there by having the appointment.
Correct.
So for all the years that I worked for cities, I always thought that 1 year appointments was pretty tough when you're trying to encourage people to come work and, you know, all that kind of stuff. But I also believe that having a term automatically creates some transparency and accountability. So I'm not against lengthening the terms, but everybody that sits up here right now, we have a term, 4 years most of the time. So I wouldn't be opposed to lengthening the term to like a 4-year term to give some stability to appointed officials who want to come here. But I did do some research into the benefits of having the terms that I just want to talk about a little bit. But I do have some questions first. Is there a specific problem that we're trying to solve by eliminating the terms outside of just giving more security to the appointed official?
No, it's really just been brought up. We've had quite a few new appointed officials in the last 2 to 3 years, and that's been something that each one of them has brought forward in accepting the position is, why is there a term? Like, why
Right.
I should just be in the position until I resign or until I'm removed if I'm not doing a good job. And that kind of came up through each of us, and obviously more recently, the fire chief, and that's kind of why this was brought forward.
Right.
So, and can I, sorry, just add real quick, so, and the issues that I've seen is recruitment.
Yeah.
It has been much more difficult and is getting more difficult, to recruit those people that are willing to accept that. And I understand, so we are elected, so yes, we obviously do, but these positions are not. They are appointed but not elected. And I know with our most recent appointment, it was, and I agree that it was a big concern on that. And so and I would say that is the issue. It makes it more difficult to recruit the people that you really want to be here. Doesn't make it impossible, but it does make it more difficult and does cause concerns in that regard. So I'd say that's one of the issues as well.
Great. So moving on with that, let's see. So again, 4-year terms seems reasonable to me. That's a pretty good guarantee for any employee. But what is the difference between an appointed official and a manager of a department or a division?
An appointed official is appointed by the mayor and council, whereas a department manager is hired by the superintendent or the appointed official for that department.
Okay, and then, so with that appointment, though, council has always been involved in that appointment. And so I think when we remove that ability to reappoint, however long it is, a year, 4 years, or whatever, we're really removing a level of accountability that the council has and putting all of it onto the mayor's office. So that's one of the concerns that I have with that. The other thing is, so I do believe that the appointment process is a public deliberate review of the individuals to make sure they're still the right fit. And when we remove that, it actually removes it also from the public being, or public transparency, I should say, of holding their council members accountable for what's going on the higher level management of the city. The other thing that I noticed is that council is very restricted from anything that has to do with HR. Like, we don't really know anything that's going on. We don't get employee reviews. We know nothing. And so the only way that we are involved is through the appointment process. And having the ability to appoint or not appoint seems to be something that I believe is important for the council to have. The only performance review that an appointed official has is in that process of being appointed or having their appointment renewed. I'm not comfortable putting all of it back onto the mayor's office because as it stands right now, appointed officials are appointed by the council and they have some accountability to the council. And a lot of that has been taken away, I've noticed, in the last few years. Like, it's very insulated as it is. So I don't want to get rid of even more of the transparency or connection that council has with that. I know that other cities have removed those terms. I don't necessarily agree that it's the best model, and I think that we have an opportunity to preserve a system that requires accountability. So I would be in favor of lengthening the terms to 4 years max, but I would not be in favor of getting rid of the term indefinitely.
And
Thank you.
Councilmember Register, just to confirm, the appointment process wouldn't change. The mayor and council would still
Okay,
have to
then I should say,
approve the
well,
appointment.
right, but we still have a reappointment process, so that's what I should have said. So I'm okay with lengthening the term up to 4 years like we have here, because this council appoints their appointed officials. If this council changes, the appointed official still has to be a best fit. But in saying that, think about how to just say this more clearly. I think that appointed officials rise to a different level of an employee that's been hired by somebody internally to come in and manage the department. And in that accountability, I feel like they should come back to the council, however, so often, to have their review with the council and then earn their reappointment.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, just
yeah.
quickly, the appointments are not a guarantee, I just want to make clear that the appointments are not a guarantee or for the appointments of employment. An appointed official can still be fired without cause, right? So that it's not a guarantee of employment. We're not creating employment contracts or expectations of employment for appointed officials. If the mayor and the majority or 3+1 of the council wanted to fire or terminate an appointed official without cause, they could still do that. It's not a guarantee of employment to be appointed.
And I understand that. When I was asked about this from the mayor, and I think I talked to you about it too, my concern is that the council is an elected body that reports to the community. And we appoint the appointed officials, right? As it stands right now, we are often asked to appoint people to commissions and boards, and we barely have any information at all on them. And these are people that are making decisions for the city. So on those high-level management positions in the appointments, I believe they should have to come back for a reappointment in front of council and earn that reappointment. But like I said, I am not against lengthening the term to give some stability to people as they come in.
And if I could offer a counter perspective from the city as a whole, to have your appointed officials who aren't making the policy decisions but implementing the policy, to be able to have continuity that's not jeopardized by a change on the council or a change in elected officials, but it gives the city a continuity of people who have been appointed and managing, is an advantage that attracts, not just when we're recruiting, but for people who are in these positions, knowing that you're not going to be subject to a new mayor or a new council coming in who may or may not like you, and it's not the job you're doing, but you're going to be having that.
But
So,
like you said, they have to have a majority council vote. So it's not really something that's guaranteed just because if you change a mayor position or a couple of council positions, that's going to make any difference. What I'm saying is that we represent the public as the governing body, and if we're being honest, over the last several years, it feels like some of the council's responsibilities have been stripped. So we're not as involved, we're not allowed to be as present as I think other councils have. And so it just feels like this is another layer in removing some of the responsibility and accountability that the council has.
but if there was a question about a particular appointed official performing their duties, the council then could, or the mayor could, engage in a process of looking at terminating the appointment as well. So it's not that it's impossible to have that happen.
Right. I understand what you're saying, and I also think that having the appointment process is probably something that we need in light of some of the things that have happened and things like that, maybe it's better to, if we run into a problem, to not have a reappointment instead of trying to initiate or activate that rule. I think it keeps us safe. But again, I'm not against lengthening the terms.
Yeah, and real quick before we get to Councilor Stoddard too, just to make sure, so this, I know there's a lot of talk about stripping power, things that this strips a lot of that power from the mayor. Right now, whoever the mayor is, if for some reason, Oscar, I'll just pick on you, if the mayor doesn't like Oscar, they simply do not bring Oscar's name forward, and then he is done. And then the mayor can input a interim city attorney, and then the council has no say on that. And so this really takes a lot of that away from the mayoral position and really requires, again, the council to do that. Because right now, at the end of the day, all the chips fall on the mayor's desk. If they don't want an appointed official, don't like him, they just wait till that term, and then they just don't bring that name forward. And then they move in a different direction until that person's gone and doesn't have the ability to do it. So it does shift that and strips that from the mayor's office, from the desk of the mayor to, again, to the council as general in that regards.
And just to refute that, though, we have had situations where you've brought names forward and they were not voted on. So I think there's a side to every one thing, because you have appointed or brought names forward, the council said no, you've brought them forward, they said yes, So I think that's the balance, right? I think that's the balance we need to keep.
Councilor Stoddard?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have any problem with the longevity part of it either, but addressing what Oscar said, we can fire somebody at will if we want to. The only problem with that is we got ICRM to go through, and those lawyers seem to want to settle things regardless of what the evidence is, so they don't have to spend the time on things, and that costs the taxpayer money. That's a problem I have with that. If we could just do it ourselves, and you were the prosecuting lawyer, wouldn't have any problem with it. But track record of ICRM, settle out of court, pay the money, and it costs the taxpayers. So that's a problem for me. So-
And Councilman Static, I think that's a good point. Although I think most recently we saw that having terms on appointed officials didn't solve that dilemma either, right?
Yeah.
So I don't think there might be a correlation, but I don't know if that's going to solve that or not. Currently we see that it didn't on the last.
Yeah, it probably won't, because like I say, I think, well, Mr. Allgood and I are probably senior people on here, and we've seen it, I've seen it happen in my first term and didn't like it. It reminded me sometimes of corporate lawyers I had to deal with in my corporate world, and they always wanted to settle out of court because it's going to be less than, what it would cost us to, but then you have to, you got to set a guideline someplace that, we're not going to settle this because we know we're right, we've got the evidence and everything, but they just don't seem to do that. Anyway, Michelle, coming from the corporate world, forgive me for my opinion, but what I like as far as a system to grade people is when we had say a director, for instance, that we had quarterly reviews, and what we did is we had those people that worked directly with that particular director, they had a grading system also that was sent out to them, no names attached to the form or nothing. And then his immediate supervisor had one too, that graded that particular person too. And then we put that together with the HR person. And, sometimes you'd have two separate things, what Mr. Allgood was talking about. If you have a mayor that's friendly to you and a couple of councilmen, you could live forever on this doggone appointment thing. But with that system, if the folks that reported to that particular director directly, and it could be anywhere from a half a dozen to 3 dozen people in my case, it puts up a red flag right away if those people that are grading that particular director that work under him, it puts up a flag right away to me when almost their report says, this guy isn't doing his job. But yet the director that he reports to said, yeah, I think he's doing a great job. So, there's kind of an offset there where you have a lot of honesty, I think, and maybe just a little bit of friendship that doesn't skew things. And I'm just wondering whether, I don't know if it's a possibility we can do that or not, but I think that those people that work for you, I think they should have an opportunity to grade you also, in all confidentiality, no names attached. And then you report to the mayor, then he has an opportunity to grade you too, and then you put the two together and see what you have. I'd be a lot more comfortable with that than what we're doing. Like Mr. Allgood said, I'm curious too why we're the only person on the block that does this. What reason do the other ones have not to? Do you know?
No, I don't
No?
know. I sent
Okay.
out kind of a survey to all of my HR for public sector in Idaho, and all of them responded back with, no, we don't have that. It's until
Yeah.
removed or resigned. So
Yeah.
kind of shocked me as well, because it wasn't something I had looked into until it was brought up more recently. And but I can also assure you that throughout the appointment of Oscar and myself in our positions, that everything is done in a fair, consistent, and methodical process, that if there are things that I'm noticing or things are coming to me or the mayor has asked me to look into, like, you have a good sounding board that's reviewing all of that, which then would be bringing forward to the mayor or bringing you guys into an executive session to say, hey, this is what we're seeing. I don't know that that was necessarily done in the past, but I feel like that we've seemed to develop a pretty good process through any of the employment issues we've had thus far, so.
Yeah, because we have a situation now, and I'm not a social media guy, I'm not signed up on Facebook or anything else, but if somebody sends me something to look at, I'll do that, and then I'll reply to them. But one of the folks that are running for mayor right now, through social media, I had a statement from those folks that as soon as I get in there, I'm going to fire the police chief. Well, has that particular person looked at all the evidence that's against the police chief and whether it's good or bad or what? I'm sure he hasn't, because he hasn't You know, that person hasn't attended any of the meetings, I don't think, and he's not privy to executive sessions, so how in the world can you make a statement like that, see? Getting back to what Mr. Allgood said, if you got the mayor and a few other ones, you could be in there for a lifetime, even if you do a terrible job, so just things to think about. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councilman Static, I would also offer the perspective that's maybe a little bit inverse of why we're different or why everybody else is different. The statute that has appointed officials, if not on our city code, but in the state statute, doesn't mention anything about terms. Right, so that's something that Caldwell has added in our city code, but that's not something that the state has put in as a mandate for specified terms of that way. So maybe the question is more, why does Caldwell do this different than everybody else, not why is everybody else doing it different?
Point
Yep.
well taken.
Councilor Dittenber?
Mr. Mayor, thank you. So I've got a couple questions, and I'm not sure who should answer this, and I'm thinking maybe Justin should probably even come to the front row. So bear with me as I spit these out. So we talked about Caldwell being one of the last cities to change our ordinance to being a more, permanent appointment unless otherwise, conduct requires their removal. Have we talked with any cities, or have you chatted with any of the cities who have gone to what you're proposing, who have then at some point said, oh, no, we're taking that away, we want to be able to limit people's terms? Has anybody gone the other way?
No, when I reached out, then as they responded individually, then I emailed them individually because it was just sent to a group email, and they all feel like their process has gone fairly well. There's always going to be something that comes up, but it also comes up on the flip side where we've seen the same thing here. So I feel like that's more of the exception when there's an issue than anything.
Okay, so then, along those same lines, this is one of my questions, and thanks for bringing up the code. So we've taken a look at our policy against Idaho code, and so we've concluded, at least from our legal standpoint, that our code might not necessarily be consistent with Idaho code, or we just have additional language in ours that isn't necessary.
Yeah, I would agree with the second characterization. I think we're permitted to add extra on there, but it's not required. So I don't think that I think it's compliant with Idaho code, but we do have an addition to that we've placed on it.
Okay. So, did any of the cities tell you when we changed over, or we had to do it 5 years ago, or we had to do it 4 years ago, or we did that? So is there anything that, an HR director from another city can pull out and go, this is why? We had this legal advice, we had this, something happened that made us change that. Did they provide any sort of source documentation to what was the impetus for their change?
No, I did not gather that much detail into it. I was just wondering where they were all at currently, and it seems like most of them have been to that for a while. It wasn't anything new many of them had done, but I didn't get into the details of that, but I would be happy to look into that.
And Councilman Dittenber, I would add again, going back to that, the question presumes that we were the standard and everybody has shifted away from that. And I think the statute presumes that we're not the standard. We've in fact shifted differently. So they may not have an explanation. They may have just always done it that way because that's what's required by statute.
And I have another question then with regards to that. So we know that we had an appointed official leave our organization here a couple of years ago, or even more recently than that, and we thought a reappointment just was a non-reappointment. And obviously ICRIMP thought otherwise. And so whether we agree or disagree with that decision, ICRIMP thought otherwise. So does ICRIMP, have they weighed in on this? Because the last thing I want to do is put ourselves in the same basket with Canyon County where ICRIMP drops them.
So Councilman Dittenber, I think we need to back away from ICRIMP viewed this as that particular situation that the problem was the non-reappointment. I think there were other claims that were made by that individual that ICRIMP was paying on those claims. The separation from employment took place in a way that was a non-reappointment, but I don't think it was the reappointment itself that not taking place was the actual was the only factor.
Okay, so, great, I'm glad you answered that question, because you,
From a training perspective, I'm sorry to
No,
interrupt you,
please.
but, from a training perspective, ICRIMP has been of the position for, quite some time, probably at least a decade, saying that cities should really seriously consider their terms for the appointed officers, and their recommendation is to have the no fixed term date for the appointed officers, and so that's something that AIC has been training on also, and so there's been a slow evolution of cities looking at that question, and they've come to the decision that that's what they see as appropriate.
and that's, and thanks for weighing in on that, Justin. But if we were to stay with our same language and stay the same course, is there anything that prevents an appointed official from seeing the writing on the wall and then making a claim somewhere that I was not reappointed on purpose? My point being that we're not in a perfect world either way we do it.
Yeah, I think, in a sense, I agree with that, that I don't think that having the appointment terms defined or open-ended is going to affect an employment claim.
Okay,
I think when you come to the end of employment and people look back, I don't think that's really going to affect. It's hard to talk in generalities because there can always be something that happens in a specific case. But I don't think the claim is going to be something about potentially a workplace situation, retaliation, something like that. How the employment ends is not going to impact what that claim would be necessarily. Maybe how that employment is ended in the process could be, but you have to do that process no matter what.
so then, and then I guess my final question is a loaded question. And we appoint people we want to trust. So we've appointed you, Michelle, and we've appointed, Oscar. And so I guess I'm not inclined at first glance to say, I trust you on every issue except for this issue. So your recommendation is that we make this policy change from a simple policy standpoint. That's your recommendation.
Yes.
And your legal recommendation is that we make this change based upon your legal opinion.
I think my legal opinion would be the city can do this. I think if you want to ask me if I think we should do this, I don't know if there's a legal one way or the other. That's the policy question, but it certainly is legal for the city to do this, and there seems to be a lot of benefit to the city for this movement, for this particular action.
And so that's a good way. So let me rephrase the question in a question you may want to answer. We have the scales of something, whether or not it's justice or the scales of doing what's right. It just feels more right to make the policy change.
Yes, I think I would agree with that. I mean, as the city attorney, you can make either one. I don't think there's legal ramifications to make one or the other. This is a policy decision for the council to be able to make, to decide what's best for the city and what's best for these particular employees.
And so, Justin, I just want to follow up on something you said, and thank you for your comment. So in your work with AIC and their workings with cities, I mean, that's their whole objective, is to progress cities along the right path. So this has been kind of this course of discussion over time that we do away with limits on appointed positions.
That is correct. It is too easy to perceive the appointed officials as being political when they are reappointed on a partisan 2 or 4 year schedule alongside the elected officials. It's just too easy to make the mistaken perception that these are political officers instead of, employees that are serving the city as a whole. And so from that perspective, AIC and ICRIMP have recommended that cities move in this direction of eliminating the terms, and it has been a good change. It has helped communities.
So basically, what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that an appointed official who has some sort of longevity is inclined to lead the city in the right direction, absent mismal or nonfeasance, rather than being a political yes man to somebody who is elected.
Yes, I think there's a strong public perception when they see the reappointment of the appointed officers every 2 or 4 years that these people are political staffers, and that's just not the case. They are not political staffers. They are professionals that are serving their community. And so I think that's the public perception, and we've been working hard to try to fix that perception, but it is very real. And I hope that helps explain why the evolution has happened. It's been a very slow change over decades of cities realizing that that was the direction that they wanted to go in. It wasn't anything that happened immediately, but it has been a very real change nonetheless. And ICRIMP and AIC have been advocating at the forefront of that because they fear the public perception of the appointed officers when they are reappointed is that they are partisan political staffers and not people that are serving the whole community.
Great. So I have another question, and I'm sorry I'm going down this. I want to make sure I take the full measure of time so we can cut the next, who's next?
CDBG is next.
Oh, CDBG. So, so with regards to the changes here, so the mayor and half the council plus one can unappoint somebody. We can still unappoint them without a specific cause. The mayor can say it's time for so-and-so to find greener pastures somewhere else, and can find 4 council members that agree with that, and we can exercise that removal without cause.
Yeah, that's correct, and we plan to put some specific language in the ordinance that would say for any reason, to make sure that there's no doubt that this is not a for cause or an expectation of employment, that we're creating some sort of employment contract.
Okay, I'm done.
Councilor Williams.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Collins, my apologies for carrying on. For those of you here watching, Mr. Porter, it's obvious that these matters that we take up here, and we're not making any decision today, right, Mr. Mayor?
Correct.
Are not easy. This was allotted 15 minutes. And so I think it's important for everyone watching to understand these are challenging decisions that this body will be asked to consider a decision on at some point. And I would just suggest that in my decision-making process, I try to think of what's best for the city, not what's best for me. And I got to think beyond my term on this council and think what's best for Caldwell. It's hard because we affirmed you, and we affirmed our city attorney, and we affirmed our fire chief, and every other appointed official sitting in here right now, and we have to think beyond you as well, right? We have to think of what is best for the city of Caldwell, and so that's the decision before us. I appreciate you bringing this before us and the input that all of you have brought to us as we weigh this, and that's all I have to say, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any other lights on at this time, so we appreciate that, the information. We appreciate the feedback as well from the council in regards to this item. And again, no decisions are being made. This is just for information to gather and then potentially bring back for a decision in the council in the future. So that moves us into our next item on this workshop, and is for Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan. You may need to be quick, Ms. Collins.
I will be quick. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Robin Collins, Community Development Director, City of Caldwell. This is just a brief overview of the action plan that'll be coming before you on August 4th for a public hearing. We are required to do this workshop also to just make people aware. So basically, the primary objective of the program is to develop viable urban communities, and this is mainly for the benefit of low to moderate income persons. This is through decent housing, suitable living environment, and expanded economic opportunities. The plans we work under is a consolidated plan, which is a 5-year plan that contains the activities and organizations that we look to fund over that 5-year period and strategies to do that. It also describes all of the needs of the community, priorities, and activities that will be undertaken. Once that plan is filed with HUD, if there's any changes to that, we have to file for an amendment, so we do have to follow that plan. We are on the last year of our 5-year plan. Part of that plan is that we have to do an annual action plan each year. This is required to be submitted to HUD. And this is more specific than the consolidated plan, so this will be specific activities for that funding allocation for that program year. So this program year is program year 2025. CDBG is always a year behind. So this is fiscal year 2026. We have recently got our letter from HUD that says we will be allocated $464,994, which is an increase from last year, so that is good news. The 3 priority needs that we have put into the plan is, again, to provide decent housing, create those suitable living environments, and expand opportunities for LMI persons. And I'm going to briefly go through how we're proposing to do that. So 5 plan goals. The first one is acquisition and disposition of property. The second would be public facilities and improvements, public services, housing, and then your general program administration, which is your staff that actually manages the CDBG program. So under acquisition and disposition, we are proposing acquisition of land, disposition of land, or clearance activities to support the creation of new affordable rental or homeowner housing. So what this does is if somebody applies for a grant and they want help with building rental units or building affordable housing units, CDBG can give them money towards the acquisition of the land, and then they provide the financing for the rest of it. Public facilities and improvements, we're proposing to use some funding to help improve things like sidewalks, street and public parking lot lighting. Other things that could be activities is homeless facilities, ADA improvements to public buildings and sites, ADA accessible playground equipment in parks, or neighborhood facilities. Under public services, we do have a cap of 15%. That's 15% of our annual allocation. Generally, what we use this for is things like emergency rental assistance, homeless services, health services, senior services. So these are just programs that people do, case management services. Under the housing goal, activities that you can do under this is like down payment assistance, housing rehabilitation, or critical repair programs. For instance, this year we funded Habitat for Humanity, so they are doing a housing rehabilitation program for homeowner-occupied housing that are low to moderate income. And then you can see there's some other things on there that are activities that we can do. Again, general program administration, that's the staff person that manages it. We're also capped at 20% of the annual funding allocation. That person does a lot. A lot of management, a lot of reporting, budgets, monitoring subrecipients, fair housing activities, and submission of all the applications for the federal program to receive our funding. So our 2025 projects we're looking at, again, are the administration. We're allocating $92,998. This was all part of your budget presentation, so these numbers were in there. They're going to look like more on here because, as you see the footnote at the bottom, this funding includes the proposed HUD allocation, but it also includes any reserves that we have left over from previous years. So the second activity would be acquisition of land for the construction of new affordable rental units. We've set aside $400,000. Public facilities and improvements, we've set aside $600,000. Public services, again, we're capped, so we can only spend $69,749. And then housing, we're looking at, again, funding housing rehabilitation, homeownership assistance, which is your down payment assistance, and emergency home repairs at $65,000. Just some past performance measures for you. We had 26 new affordable housing units that were constructed. Those were completed last year. They were rented, all of them, within 30 days. which tells you the need is still out there. It provided housing for 63 persons, and 44% of those were earning less than 30% of the area median income, which is pretty low income. We have 10 new affordable homeowner units under construction currently, where we supplied some funding for land acquisition. Those are supposed to be completed this year. We have 15 to 20 homeowner rehabilitation and/or critical repair projects that will be completed this year. And we will be serving 81 persons and 27 households through the public service activities just in 1 year. So that's pretty amazing. So citizen participation, we're required to have a lot of citizen participation on our annual action plan. So our public comment period opened June 23rd and it goes till July 24th. It is required to be 30 days long. We did advertise these in the local newspaper, both in English and Spanish. Public and nonprofit agency collaboration, we sent out surveys and emails to a whole bunch of public agencies and nonprofit organizations to get their feedback and their comments on the plan. Tonight, we have our public workshop, and then we will have a public hearing on, that says August 44th. Sorry, my finger got carried away. It's supposed to be August 4th at 6 p.m. And again, the public hearing notices were advertised in the local paper in English and Spanish. So next step is just to complete the public comment period. When we receive those public comments, that goes into the action plan, and if there's anything we need to change on that in the action plan, we will before that comes to council for the final draft. We'll have our public hearing on August 4th. We have to have this plan submitted to HUD prior to August 16th, or we'll lose our funding. And then the program year for this will start October 1. Was that quick enough?
That was great.
I'll stand for any
Fantastic.
questions you might have.
Okay, thanks so much. Councilor Stoddard.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Robin, will any of this be coordinated with Urban Renewal and what they're doing at all? As far as expansion on the north side and,
Potentially, there could be, if that area qualifies as a low to moderate income area.
Okay.
Sure. I think what we really are looking at is some of the older neighborhoods in Caldwell where they really need sidewalks and where they need lighting. Also within downtown, where we need some more public lighting to make people feel safe when they're walking after hours to their parking.
well, if it's possible, I see Mr. Porter's here, so if it's possible, I'd sure like to see that coordination take place so the left foot knows what the right foot's doing and.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I do feel that Jim and I are very good at communicating and collaborating, so we'll continue to
Good,
do that even more.
good, appreciate that, thank you.
Okay, and I don't see any other questions, so
Okay.
well done, with even 2 minutes to spare. So, okay, and that is our second workshop that we had. That's all we had scheduled for this evening. Appreciate the information. No decisions were made, informational only in that regard. So with that, we're going to conclude our workshops, and we'll be back in just a few minutes to begin our regularly scheduled city council meeting.